You're with Studio for Art, and today we're going to do another one of our to-go packets, and this one is a hand sewing project. We're going to sew a donut today, and so inside here, I always have a sticker, and then I have this circle, and it has a pin in it. This thing is a pin. And I want to keep the pin in, because what it's doing is it's holding these two pieces together. So I'm going to keep this pin in, and it's laying flat right now. One side is pointy. It's not too bad though. I'm going to try and be careful since it's pokey. So I'm going to put this aside. And then I have these three little ones. One of them has the fabric glue. One of them has decorative things, and the other one has my needle and thread and a piece of chalk. I have my popsicle stick. I have a pair of scissors. I have a glitter glue. And two felt squares. One is pink and one is brown. And I have this paper bag, and inside here is stuffing. So this is something that we'll need more towards the end. So I have all my tools, and what I want to do is start with the one that has the needle and thread in the little plastic packet. So I'm going to open this up. So I have a little tiny spool of thread and a needle. And I'm going to try and thread this needle. So what that means is I'm going to get a piece of thread through, I don't even know if you can see it, the teeny tiny hole. This is called the eye of the needle, and I'm going to get my thread through that. I'm going to take my thread and find the end of it. What I'm going to do is there's a hole in the middle of this thread. I'm going to put my thumb on the bottom and my middle finger, my first finger, on top, and I'm going to hold this part a little bit loosely, and what I can do is then it spins. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to make the thread as long as my arms are wide, so I'm holding this end and this end, and I have a really long piece of thread. So my piece of thread, I'm going to cut it with my scissors. I'm going to try and get a clean end to this. I'm also getting closer. Okay, so I have my thread, and I have my needle, and I'm going to try and fit the thread through the needle. And what I like to do is kind of hold my thread up, and I'm holding it close to the end, because if I hold it down here, it's really floppy and I can't control, like it's hard to put through. So I'm going to hold it really close to the end, and I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to try and fit it over my thread like that, so that it's through. It might take a couple of tries, so try it a couple of times. And then I'm going to hold this end, and I'm going to line it up with the other end of my thread. So I have the two ends lined up here, and I have the needle hanging out in the middle. This is another tricky part, is tying a knot at the end of your thread. I like to make a messy knot. This is how I was taught when I was a kid. So you can take your finger, if you need to, you can lick your finger. So I have my finger, and I'm going to take my thread, and I'm going to try and wrap it like crisscross. So wrap like that. And I'm going to pinch here. So my thumb is pinching over the where it's crisscrossed. And I'm going to try and roll it. I can use my fingers like this and roll it. What I'm doing is I'm trying to get the thread to be super twisty. So I have this thread loop here. And I'm going to take my pincher fingers. I'm going to pinch up towards the top. So the knot, the loopy part is hanging down here. And I'm going to slide my fingers down. Like that, until it catches. And now I have a really big messy knot at the end. And this way it won't go through my fabric. So now I have my needle and my thread. The needle is hanging down in the middle, and the thread is tied with a big messy knot at the top. And I'm actually going to start to sew. So when you sew, the needle is sharp, right? So we want to be careful. And what that means is sometimes we need to move slow so that we don't accidentally poke anybody or anything. I'm going to take my needle, and what I like to do is actually, I have my 2 layers of fabric. I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to start with my needle in between, and then I can hide my knot. So I'm going to pull this all the way through, like that. And I still have the pin in here because the pin is going to help me for a little while. And now I can choose what kind of stitch I want to do. One of them, we'll do 2 easy, good learning stitches. So one is called a running stitch, and that means it's going to go up and down, up and down. So I just went up. So now I'm going to go back down. When I do this, I'm trying to keep my stitches kind of small and close together because I'm going to end up putting stuffing in it, and I don't want the stuffing to fall out. So I'm having my stitches be somewhat small and close together. And now since I went through this side, I'm going to go up. And then I'm going to go down. And then I'm going to go up. And I'm making a pattern, up, down, up, down. Poked myself a little bit. Sometimes it happens. Uh-oh. Look at that. So when I was doing it, my thread somehow got caught and it's making my donut smush. So I have to figure out why is that happening and see if I can fix it. So I'm going to take my thread, my string, and I'm going to bloop, lift it up, and I'm all good. Still going. So I'm going little by little. I'm making these stitches around the top. And this is the running stitch. So another stitch that I can try is called the whip stitch. And what that means is I'm always going to be going through the same side. So I'm going to go around and around and around. So right now my thread is coming out here, so I'm going to have my needle go up. And I'm going to pull. And then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to have my needle go up. I'm still making sure that my stitches are pretty close together. And then I'm going to go up. So I'm going to do that same pattern all the way around where I just go up. And this is going to make little lines around the outside like that. So the dashes, that's the running stitch, and the ones that go around the edge, that's the whip stitch. What I want to do though is I'm going to try and sew all the way until I'm close to where I started. I don't want to sew it all the way up, but I want to get close. So I'm going to keep stitching until I'm at that point, and then we'll go to the next part. So now I've sewn almost all the way around. I started here, and I went and I stitched and I stitched and I stitched and I stopped about here. So I can take the pin out because I don't need it anymore. I'm going to take the pin out, I'm going to put it back into the little container so that I don't poke anybody. And now I want to tie my thread in a knot because I don't want all my stitches to fall out. I don't want all that hard work I did to be undone. So what I like to do is I'm going to take my thread, and I'm going to get closer again. Boop. So I'm going to take my needle and my thread, and I have my stitches. I'm going to go with my needle and go underneath a stitch. I'm going to pull it most of the way, but I'm going to leave this big loop here. So I have this loop that I didn't pull it all the way through, and I'm going to have my needle go underneath that. And I can do that twice, just in case. I think I went the wrong way. There we go. And what I'm doing is I'm tying my thread onto one of the stitches. I'm tying it onto itself. What I like to do is do it twice, just to be sure. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go underneath that stitch, through the loop, and pull. So I did that with my needle still on. I didn't cut it yet because it's easier for me to do it while it's still there. So now that my thread is in a knot, I'm going to cut it off. And now I can choose to keep it just like this and stuff it, or I can add one stitch right in the middle, and then it'll make it look like one of the round donuts. So this would be like a filled donut. I'm going to put one stitch in the middle. So I'm going to start right in the middle. I'm going to go through, and I'm not going to pull my thread all the way through. I'm just going to do a little like out, and then I'm going to go back in a slightly different spot, but they're still close together. So I have the two ends of my thread, and I'm going to tie these together in a knot. So I have the two thread and just made one stitch, little stitch, and I'm gonna tie them. So I'm gonna go, have my two ends, I'm gonna go over, and then I'm gonna go under, like that, like it's the first tie of my shoe, and I'm gonna do that again. So I'm gonna go over and under, and if I want to, I can do something called a surgeon's knot and go under it one more time and pull all of that down. So now my two ends are tied in a knot, and I'm gonna cut both of the extras off because I don't need that anymore. Alright, so I have my donut, I have this little knot stitch in the middle, I've got it all sewn up except for right here. So this part, I have a hole right here, and what I get to do is I get to stuff it and make it look like it's a big fluffy donut. I'm gonna take my stuffing bag, and with this, sometimes what we want to do is we want to take this whole entire thing and try and put it in there, but that doesn't work very well. And it actually makes it so that it's not as fluffy. So I'm gonna pull off a little bit, and I'm gonna try and put that little bit into my donut, and I'm gonna push it as far as I can because it's easier to stuff the far off places first. So I'm gonna stuff that. I'm gonna take a little bit more, and now I'm gonna stuff this in. If you can't reach, if it's too hard to push it all the way down, what you can do is you can get something like the popsicle stick or a pencil, and I'm gonna start to push it in there with that if I can't reach. That big. So I'm gonna stuff it until it's as fluffy as I want. If I put too much stuffing, it might get a little bit hard. So I have to decide how much I want in there. Now, I have this hole that I want to stitch up because I don't want my stuffing to fall out. Everything else is holding. So you might have enough thread left on your needle and you might not. I don't, which means that I'm going to re-thread my needle. So I'm going to get more thread. I don't need as much as last time, I just need some. But I want to have more than I need so that I don't run out again. And this might happen while you're stitching the donut too. You might get about halfway and need more thread, so you can tie it off in a knot and then get more thread and keep going. So I'm gonna thread my needle again, like that. I'm gonna tie my knot. So now my needle is threaded again, and I'm gonna finish stitching this little hole up. So I'm gonna start, like I did before, I'm gonna start on the inside so that my knot is hiding. Tuck it in. And it can be a little bit trickier to do this part because the stuffing makes it so that the fabric wants to open like this. So what I do is I use my fingers and I kind of just hold it closed. Come back all the way around, so I don't have any more holes, and I'm going to do that knot again. So I'm going to take my needle, go underneath the stitch, start to pull it through, but then before I pull it all the way through, I'm going to go through the loop like that. I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to go under my stitch. Oh, I got it looped in. I'll move it. Go through that. Cool. Okay, so now I'm going to cut this off. And I have a plain donut. It's just like before. Now I'm going to take the extra thread out. So this I don't need anymore. I'm going to go end up putting it in the trash. I'm going to take my needle and put it back into my little cup so I can keep it safe. And my extra stuffing is going to go back in my bag. So now I get to decorate my donut. I get to figure out what flavor frosting. Is it going to be pink frosting? Is it going to be chocolate frosting? So I think for this one, I feel like having a pink donut today. Usually donuts don't have square frosting. So I get to decide or figure out how big to make my frosting, which is why I have this piece of chalk. So chalk is a good tool for drawing on felt. This fabric is called felt. So I'm going to draw on the felt. And I like to start by drawing because sometimes when I go straight to cutting, I don't always make it the right size. I think I will make it the right size, but then I don't. So I'm going to sketch it out first. So I'm going to draw it on here. And I also want to figure out how to do the hole in the middle, which is a tricky part. So I drew a little circle in the middle and a big circle here. I'm going to take my scissors and carefully start to cut. I have to make little cuts, go all the way around. Alright, so now I have a pink circle. Does it fit? Oh good, it fits. Fits right on my donut. I have to figure out how to cut the hole in the middle without cutting through the outside. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fold it in half and I'm gonna make one little cut. So I'm just gonna do a little cut like that. You can't really see it, but I can put my scissors through it like that. And now that I have this in the middle, now I can cut this circle out of the middle without cutting through the sides. So I'm gonna take my scissors and I'm gonna keep cutting. And I like to turn the fabric as I cut, and that helps me cut a circle. So I'm using both of them, and I'm cutting and turning it together. So my hands are working as a team. All right, so now I have some frosting. Oh, this donut's looking delicious already. Look at that. I want to make sure it sticks though, so I have a choice. I can either try and stitch it on, or I can glue it on. So this one is my glue. It's a fabric glue. And this is why I need the popsicle stick. I'm going to take my popsicle stick, take a little bit of this fabric glue, and I'm going to spread it. I'm going to spread it on top. With this glue, it might not look like it sticks at first because it has to dry in order for it to stick. So it might just feel like it's kind of sitting on top, but as it dries, it'll stay better. The other thing is, right now it looks white, but in the end, it'll be clear. So if I get a little bit on the other side, it's okay. All right, keep spreading it. And I'm going to set it on top of my donut. There we go. Now I have my pink frosting on my donut. I also have other things I can use to decorate. So my other one, my other decorating piece, I have some yarn and I have some sequins. So if I want it to look like it has some sparkly frosting or some sparkly sprinkles, I can use some of these sequins and I can glue them on. So I could figure out how I want to decorate it. I could use my yarn. Ooh, I got it all tangled. There we go. Could use my yarn and make a little pattern on here. Sometimes you know how they have like the frosting and it has like little zigzags. So I could decorate it like that. I could cut the yarn into little pieces and make it look like it has sprinkles that way too. So I could take my scissors and cut little sprinkles and glue all my little sprinkles on and make it look super yummy. So I have all sorts of different ways to decorate it. And that way you can make yours absolutely unique, which is pretty cool. So, I'm gonna let all my glue stuff dry before I put my new stuffy on my bed. So I'm gonna let it all dry out first and then I can actually use it. That is our Sewing a Donut Day. You can go online, studioforart.net, if you want to check out other tutorials or see what other to-go packets we have going on right now. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you soon.